you can't fix more with more, and that's kind of the overarching theme here.
Yeah.
You can't just keep burning more and more and more. So eat less and less and less, burn more and more and more. Yeah, it sounds like, well, how could that not possibly work? I mean, if there's no energy and you're burning it, it's got to come from somewhere. But like Brad said, certain systems scale back. Certain systems in your body scale back how many calories they're burning. And you're eventually just going to get fatigued. So there's only so much you can do in a day anyway.
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. I'm John Barber, and with me is Brad Pilon, and we're going to talk about the constrained energy hypothesis. It comes out of a book called Burn that we both reviewed by Henry Poncer.
Herman Poncer.
Oh, sorry, Herman Poncer. Yeah. Right? Sorry, Herman. Anyways, it's the idea that we can habituate, or our body can only burn so many calories in a day, no matter how hard we try to push it beyond whatever number to get in the effort for weight loss. There's a reason why we seem to hit a wall. And this book does a pretty good job of explaining just the general concept of energy expenditure. I guess that's actually technically his specialty, is measuring energy expenditure. And he gives a lot of different examples of different types of people. And I don't know, I'll let you take it away, because it's pretty informative, and it'll give us give you a good idea of why it's kind of hard to burn your way to weight loss.
Yeah, like it's a super good book. Herman seems like the type of guy you'd really want to have beer with, just super cool dude with lots of really cool life experiences, right? So he's not just a lab rat academic type guy. He's a go out into the Serengeti, go out into the deserts, work with tribes and earn their trust, start doing measurements, etc. And what he was working with was the concept that they, the Maasai or any of those sort of tribes you might have seen on Instagram or Google, they're lean because they're just that much more active than us, right? It's just a matter of, if we were all chasing gazelles all day, we'd be lean too. And so they use a technique called doubly labeled water, which is like the gold standard for measuring calorie intake. Calorie expenditure. And a whole lot of science behind it, but we don't really need it for this. But just know that it's pretty darn accurate. And what he found was that when you looked at these tribes versus people living in middle-class North America, the calories burnt in a day were roughly the same, which he's like, this can't be right. So they analyze it based on height, based on weight, based on gender, based on age, based on muscle, like any way they could tease us out. And they're like, Jesus, we really thought these guys would be up at like 8,000 or 9,000 calories a day, right? And the whole, remember that one time Michael Phelps, when someone asked him how much do you eat, and he's like, I don't know, like 10,000 calories a day. And then that became like gospel. That's how much he ate, and he had to retract it multiple times. Kind of like that idea. They're like, they're so lean, they're so active, they must burn a lot of calories, and they weren't. So Herman and his team did this deep dive into the research, and what they found was as calorie expenditure increased, the other energy expenditure of your heart, your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, your sort of just your daily keep you alive stuff decreased. To try, instead of this line going straight up, it tried to kind of pull it down. And it was a very interesting experiment, because oh wow, it's not this set system. It's not an engineering problem in the strictest terms, right? This is a systems problem where if one ramps up, others ramp down to try to compensate. Which makes a lot of sense, right? We are a very robust, very anti-fragile organism, right? So we shouldn't just be able to go for a run and kill ourselves, right? Just like energy expenditure beyond the point, or heat development beyond the point where we just die. And so we have these checks and balances in place because our body doesn't like a lot of change. And it's just a very interesting concept, because it plays into what we try to do with health and fitness, what we try to do with our workouts, what we try to do with our nutrition, which is always just sort of push things and then not realize that as we push, our body kind of pushes back, or I guess pulls in this case. And it kind of gives a good idea for one, you know, you're working with your body, but at the same time, when you're trying to force it to change, you're working against your body. It doesn't want to change. You're really trying to push this thing. And two, what do these, he only really measured it in energy expenditure. But in the grand scheme, we look at it and be like, what else runs under a constrained system? Muscle mass growth, power, any other physiological system you're trying to force to adapt is probably pulling back somewhere. And it'd be very interesting to look into that and see where that might be.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so this week, you can't fix more with more. And that's kind of the overarching theme here.
Yeah.
You can't just keep burning more and more and more. So eat less and less and less, burn more and more and more. Yeah, it sounds like, well, how could that not possibly work? I mean, if there's no energy and you're burning it, it's got to come from somewhere. But like Brad said, certain systems scale back, certain systems in your body scale back how many calories they're burning. And you're eventually just going to get fatigued. So there's only so much you can do in a day anyways. And actually his research shows there seems to be an upper limit of just total calories. You can,
was it like 5,000 or 6,000 for an average sized person?
Yeah. And maybe someone like Phelps or an Olympic athlete might be able to burn 7-ish, but it's actually quite difficult to force that any more than that as far as calories burnt in a day. Part of it is just because the amount your body can release from fat has an upper limit. Like each fat cell can only release a certain amount of fat per unit time. So like per minute, there's only so much fat you can pull out of any one fat cell. So theoretically, if you have more total fat cells, you can get that drip going on more total fat cells. But in general, you can only get so much energy in a given day, and then that's it. There's just no more you can get off of your body before you just collapse.
And another weird part about that is you'll get some papers or some research studies where you're like, no, look right here, these people burn an insane amount. And I always thought, well, that's different. You take someone who's never exercised, and then you're like, hey, you're going to run on a treadmill for you run 10 kilometers, whatever that is in miles, and I'm going to jack you full of stimulants, and you're just going to do this for an experiment, one off. Your body didn't have a chance to adapt. So yes, you're going to get these acute measurements that kind of disprove this theory. But in general, as a lifestyle, your body's fighting you against change. Doesn't want to do it, right? So to your point, that down regulates. And it's interesting because the way you talked about the more is more. And what I've found recently is when working with people, especially with people who fast, I'm trying to get them to do the more with less. Right, that the lower your calories are, the less work you need to do, because the low kind of our lessons from working with people with Ozempic, right? The less you're eating, the less you need to do. So I just need you to do a couple sets to maintain that muscle mass, and then go for a couple walks. But you don't need 8 HIIT workouts a week now. You can't. You can do 8 HIIT workouts a week when you're fully fed because you're an athlete getting ready for a season. But if you're actually trying to force change in your body, there's a give and take. And I think that Herman's book really sort of reestablished that concept that you can push, but you got to give somewhere. And if you don't, your body's going to do it for you. So,
yeah, the way to view it is there's going to be an upper limit, and that limit actually changes as you habituate, as Brad said. So right out of the gates, if the first time you ever try something, there's a bigger range because your body hasn't had a chance to adapt. But then specifically for calorie burn, and then you're going to become more efficient. So if you just start a running routine or some kind of cardio routine and you've never done it before, you're just going to be very inefficient at that, just at running. Let's say you're trying running. So you're going to burn a lot more calories because your body's not coordinated for it.
Going to be sore, going to lose weight. And then all of a sudden you're like, this isn't working anymore, but I'm also getting good at it.
You're right. Yeah. And so once we've this has all been measured. As people become more efficient, they actually burn less calories, which makes sense. It's kind of the definition of efficiency, right? At least metabolic efficiency. But that goes with like biomechanical, like you actually expend less energy, partly because you're better at the actual movement, and your various body systems have adapted too. And these adaptations go all the way down to like the capillaries get more dense around the muscle cell.
The pination of muscles, right? Stuff like
that.
Oh,
right. That's like the angle of the muscle. So the muscles restructures itself in a way where it's more powerful with less energy used. So your body's always adapting to whatever you do. Your body's going to react. Think, oh, you're going
On
to
a
run a
crazy
lot.
micro level, like crazy
Yes.
micro. Like it's
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it's go
so
ahead.
if you decide to run a lot, your body's like, well, he seems to want to keep running. So let's restructure the muscle so it's more efficient for running. Let's increase the density of capillaries so we can deliver oxygen more efficiently. If you run a lot, your body's actually going to try to atrophy your muscles to some degree that you're not using a lot. So like, let's make this body lighter because it's really hard to move a heavier body around. So it's just going to work towards being efficient at whatever it is you're doing, but with the like end goal to not die or not, I guess, waste away.
Yeah.
So you can only put, again, on the concept of burning, like on the concept of exercise and burning a lot of calories, your body's never trying to burn a lot of calories. It's trying to burn way less calories because it needs to hold on to those for survival.
Yep. I think the same thing happens with weight training, right? That first workout when you're just insanely sore and then you can really feel things happening and your body is learning the exercises that you're doing. And it's like, what is the most efficient way, including building some muscle, but what else can I do to just make you better at what you're doing here? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, changing your body is you're fighting against efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then getting better at a movement for a sport or for your mobility, you're flowing with efficiency. So you're kind of in this constant struggle of what you actually want, right? If you want to get bigger, stronger, faster for a specific reason, you're trying to get more efficient. But if you're trying to really force your body to adapt, you're embracing that efficiency and trying to find new ways to still be inefficient. So it's a very odd situation.
Again, specifically for the sake of trying to burn fat.
Yeah.
Becoming efficient at an exercise for the sake of its cardiovascular benefit, that's fine. Like being efficient at that's fine. That's the whole reason you would even do it, for the efficiency and all of the different adaptations that make you efficient. Like I said, better oxygen delivery, lower inflammation, like all the stuff that happens is as far as a health benefit for cardiovascular exercise. That's good. Those are the adaptations you want. But along the way, that's just going to make burning more calories. If that was ever the goal, it's just not going to work over time. That's kind of why you hear these recommendations like you can't out exercise a bad diet, or you can't exercise your way to fat loss. And it's, on one hand, it is kind of true because of this efficiency concept. Like you just keep getting more and more efficient. And the only way it really works is if you couple it with dietary restriction and you're kind of militant about it. And along the way, you have to find a way to increase the energy you can put into it without letting your body guide that. So I guess the simplest example is when bodybuilders or fitness competitors are dieting down for a show. As they're reducing their calories, their body's going to want to make you do less. It's sensing you're eating less. So it's going to be like, why don't you just relax? Because there's not a lot of calories here.
Yeah.
But you're trying to burn more while your body's trying to make you just sit on the couch. So you start, all fitness competitors and bodybuilders start ramping up some kind of stimulant, whether it's a supplement or a drug or both, to give them the energy that their body's like, no, don't do anything. You're like, no, I have to, because I'm trying to burn more calories.
Yeah.
So you're fighting, as Brad would say, you're fighting against that efficiency. And almost everyone who gets in shape for a show at really, really low body fat levels has to fight that with some pretty hard stimulants, because your body's just telling you you're not eating enough. You should have a nap. And it's just too hard to fight against that. And you can't do it without something artificially boosting your energy. And again, that's a short-term strategy too. Nope. Everybody who's ever dieted down for a show or a photo shoot knows, like, I can't do that for more than, it's like maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
This is
tough.
way too hard. And you need to rest. And it's easy to get sick. It's easy to push yourself over a limit, and I guess overtrain. You're not eating a lot, but you're trying to push yourself really hard. So in many cases, you can kind of push your system too hard, and then you just get sick, which super sucks.
Yeah.
So there's a time frame to all of this. I think that's also why you hear about diets that someone's like dieted for 2 or 3 months and they got through it, but then they hit a wall. And this is it. It's the efficiency thing. Your body gets efficient within 2 or 3 months for sure. And then the effort and what you need to do to keep going, it's and all the people we've ever trained, it's hard to push it past about 3 months. And then you just need to level off and revisit later in the year.
Yeah. Yeah. The sort of blast and cruise, as a lot of people do, right? Like it's really push it for a while, then back off, see how it feels, and push it again. And then I think it's an adaptation to really thinking about how much you're pushing your body on either the calorie restriction or the energy expenditure, and you're going to have to give on one of those, and it depends on your goals. But yeah, so the whole point of it was just realizing that you're not burning 10,000 calories a day, and sometimes the more you push, the more your body's going to pull. And so if you're going to try to make a long-term go at this, it's like what John was saying, is you have to balance it out. So you can go hard for a couple months, and then you have to figure out where's my body pulling back the most, and how am I going to change it up so that stops happening. But that's how you kind of keep going. That's what I took from the book anyways, is that this habituation of whether it's energy expenditure, whatever, just efficiency building is something you have to always be aware of as you're trying to reshape your body. And I think it's bodybuilders know that for a long time. It's the same reason we just lift heavier and heavier weights, and we think of, okay, well, now I'm doing drop sets, okay, well, now I'm doing superset, whatever you can to just sort of make the stimuli novel tends to help. And I bet you it's the same thing on the calorie burning side of the equation as well.
Right. And that's a good point. Along the way, you have a new baseline. Yeah. So if you've been exercising for let's say you've just been weight training for 10 years, well, your baseline of what that efficiency is way different than when you started.
Yeah.
So, and to Brad's point, for you to actually get sore or stimulate any more growth, you've got to exceed whatever new baseline level you've arrived at after 10 years of training, which is really, really hard. That's usually kind of the max. Like if you've been going for a decade straight, you likely have built almost all the muscle you possibly can build. That might vary depending on the decade of your life that you started. Like, did you start in your teens? Did you start in your 40s?
Right.
But in general, if you started anywhere between your teens or your 20s or even your 30s, and you go for a decade straight of regular resistance training, assuming you actually put like legitimate effort in your programs, you go enough. I don't mean like once a month, but you're doing it. Like you're going to the gym, you're probably done. And from then on, as far as major adaptation and changes to your body, and from there on, you're just holding that.
Yeah.
But you still have to go, but you have a new baseline. You have to at least hit that baseline just to keep it all.
Yeah. I think unless you're talking about a radical change in a stimulus, you're just maintaining what you've built. Right. And that to get past that change is going to have to be a very large change in your training style or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And then as far as the burn half, that I don't think that changes much throughout your life. As far as once you become efficient, there's always the upper limit. From Pontzer's work, we've realized all people sort of arrive at whatever it was, 5,000 or 6,000 calories as an upper limit, which most people will never ever touch in a day. You just won't ever even get to that number. So I guess what's the take home message here? You're always
fighting against efficiency and adaptation. In order to change the way you want, which with a physical look change, you're fighting against what your body wants, which is I'm just going to become way more efficient and stay exactly the same, right? So you're kind of in a push-pull with that scenario.
Right. And knowing that, I like the blast and cruise way of saying it. So if you're trying to change the shape of your body, specifically in this case, burn some calories to take off some fat, it's reasonable that you do it in discrete chunks throughout the year, like 2 or 3 months hard, level off, revisit 6 to 8 months later, and push it again if you want to keep going. You'll find, if you've tried this before, if you're trying it now, it's highly unrealistic to just lose the whole year long, unless you're using a GLP-1 receptor agonist, which we've seen that can be just a gradual drip all year long. But that's a major, major intervention.
And I wonder, even then, once you get up to that highest dose, if you're there for a year or two, maybe the same thing happens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the research on it shows the weight loss after a year, but it takes the year. Well, first of all, it takes 3 to 4 months just to get to the dose.
Get to that dose, yeah.
Right, and then from there, you're just eating less than your body's burning throughout the year. So it takes time, but that's that's a pharmacological reset
Different.
of where that baseline even is. So set that aside. If people are thinking, well, but I've seen people lose weight through, like, that's a different thing. If you're trying to do this without taking a GLP-1 receptor agonist, it makes the most sense to do it in discrete bursts, like a couple of months, level off a couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's how we've ever seen anyone have success in the absence of any kind of Ozempic type drug.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
All right. I think that's a good place to leave it for today. It's a little quick talk on efficiency and losing weight. So for Brad Pilon, I'm John Barber, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.